In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to invest in money without becoming a forex trader. And to show you this way, I'm going to share my computer screen with you so that way you can see how this works. So let's go. Okay, there are a lot of things in the world to invest in. It's not just shares. There's things like commodities, things like bonds, and then of course, currencies, which is what we just call money. And it is important to invest in money. And in this video, as I said, I'm going to show you how to invest in money without becoming a forex trader. And so before I do that, let's just see what we're going to be speaking about. I'm going to speak about three things. First of all, why holding foreign currency is important. Why do it in the first place? Why not just keep your rands or any other local currency that you might have? And then number two, I'm going to then show you how to actually do it. And I'm going to be comparing between using ETNs and holding physical currency. Then number three, we're just going to speak about the legalities because there are some rules to be aware of. So the first thing, which is like something I'm super passionate about, and that is why hold foreign currency in the first place. And so let's start here. Let's look at South Africa versus the US dollar. So South African Rand versus US dollar, and look at its history since, let's say, 2002. All right, so right about this period, there was the dot-com bubble, and of course, there was the global commodities boom that happened. However, as much as South Africa is a commodities exporter, and during this time, we were really exporting, for some reason, the Rand lost value against the dollar. And in total, since 2002, the South African Rand has lost about 49%, all right, in value against the US dollar. At the peak in 2020, we had lost about, say, 68% in value against the US dollar, which is pretty crazy, right? So for a long time, we've been losing value. And in fact, I can just zoom out of this and you can see from 1984 what's been going on to the Rand, all right? So this is the US dollar gaining value against the Rand, meaning the opposite of this chart is the Rand going down. So just be aware of that. And so we got a few events that have happened over the last, say, 20 or 15 years. First of all, in 2008, there was the global recession where the whole world basically just had a financial crisis. Then fast forward here, South Africa shoots an own goal against itself, where we had 3 finance ministers in 1 week, if I remember correctly. We lost Nhlanhla Nene, and then we got Des van Rooyen, and then we got Pravin Gordhan. And this was just a huge blow to the credibility of our finance system within government. So government's credibility was just basically shot. Then, of course, in 2020, we had what we had in 2020. I'll not say that here, right? And so after 2020, the Rand started gaining against the dollar. You can see the dollar going down against the Rand, and then the reversal point starts. But the long-term trend is the Rand is losing value against the US dollar. And this is pretty similar with other currencies as well, such as the euro, British pound, Australian dollar, etc. It's very, very similar. The question is why. And let's start here, right? I'm going to speak about mainly two things. And this is a headline from 2016. African countries dominate the list of worst devalued currencies. Basically, what that's saying is back in 2016, African currencies were just losing value like crazy. And the question becomes why? And it's not a difficult thing, all right? Bad governance is really the key core reason why this happens. Bad governance haunts Africa, right? So Africa is probably one of the worst governed places in the world. You can see this headline from the Global Citizen. African countries are failing to progress in good governance. That's what the reports are saying. And this is what global research and local research has been showing. We just don't have good governments, meaning what tends to happen in Africa, as much as our GDPs are steadily growing, and everybody says there's going to be this African renaissance, and Africa's just going to continue to grow, and Africa's time is coming. The reality is this: we don't have good governance, and good governance is the bedrock of healthy, functioning economies. We've seen this in South Africa over the last 10 years. We're seeing it now that we clearly just don't have any good governance at all. And what that has resulted in is our economies underperforming and business, most importantly, not performing well. So let me get into this. Why do currencies go up or down against each other. It's very, very simple. All right. If, let's say, I want to buy something that is exported by South Africa, it means I have to buy South African rands, because the local rule is all transactions have to be settled in rands. So I have to buy South African rands, meaning there has to be a demand for South African rands against my currency in order for rands to go up. So if I exchange my currency for South African rands, what happens? The rands if obviously a lot of us do it, then rands go up, and that's how prices go up for almost anything. A lot of people have to want to buy it, less than people who are actually selling it, and those who want to buy it have to be willing to buy it at a higher price. The reality is this: African currencies are not in demand. All right. No one really wants African currencies. No one is trying to buy African currencies like nairas and the likes to hold and keep and save in. Why? Because, well, politics is a risk, governments are a risk, the economies are up, down, up, down. You don't know what's really going on. There's no stability, meaning African currencies are not good currencies to hold. And unfortunately for South Africa, as much as we've been relatively a stable African country, there's a high probability that we are starting to go in a not so good direction. And that's why you should hold foreign currencies if you're a South African. Obviously, you need South African rands because you need to pay for things in South African rands, but it is very, very important that you start to consider holding foreign currencies. So big headlines that have been coming out is South Africa inflation strikes 13-year high on eve of rates call. All right, so South Africa so our inflation has been pretty much increasing over the last couple of months. We've seen inflation hit like 7.2%. Recently, when I checked it on the SOB's own website, it was around about at 7.4%, which is pretty crazy. It looks like it might even go to 7.8%. Now, a lot of people are starting to speculate that this is the top, like inflation is going to come down. Obviously, the SOB is probably going to hike interest rates again at some point. And yeah, they pretty much don't have a choice if they want to bring down this inflation. The question is this: is inflation going to come down to relatively what they want, which is between 3 and 6%, and hopefully land at 4 or 5%? Or is inflation going to continue? And if it does continue due to bad governance and economic uncertainty, and a country that's not really performing very well, and no one really wanting the currency that much anymore, though we still do export quite a lot, what's going to happen to your wealth as an individual? If you're holding South African rands, you might actually be in trouble. So what's the solution to a situation like this that you can take as an individual? It's something very simple, which is just buy foreign currency. And obviously there's two ways to do this that I'm going to show you. The first way, which is my favorite and preferred way for most people, is to actually just use ETNs. So if you use Easy Equities, you can access 3 ETNs that track 3 different currencies. The first one is the USD ETN, and then there's the Euro ETN, and then there's the Great British Pound ETN. So GBP ETN. So the way you look them up is you press invest now, and then you click on ETNs. So ETN stands for exchange traded notes, and basically what an ETN is, it's a contract when institution agrees to pay you an amount equal to the value of that contract based on obviously when you bought it. So if you buy a contract for 100 Rand and that contract increases in value by, let's say, 20%, and now the contract is worth 120 Rands, if you sell that contract, the institution will pay you obviously 120 Rands, which is your original 100 Rand plus your 20%. And so this is a great way for tracking prices of assets without necessarily having to actually physically own those particular assets. So you can look up, say, something like USD, and you'll get the New Wave USD ETN, which is by APSA New Funds. And then you can get the Euro ETN, which is a nice way to own euros. And then you get the Great British Pound ETN. So BP, that's always a tongue twister for me. Let's just check out the USD ETN just so you can see how it works. It's very simple. It's like buying any other thing on Easy Equities. You're going to click on it and you can see the value of the dollar versus the rand here. So $1 costs 16 rands 85 cents right now. And the way you make money from this is very simple. You buy it at 16 rands 85, and you have the price increase to, let's say, 17 rands or 18 rands, whatever it's going to be in the future in the next 5-10 years. Then you sell this ETN, and obviously you'd make a profit. That's how it works. The nice thing technically is that you can sort of basically invest whatever amount of money you want because of the fractional share capabilities of easy equities. You don't necessarily have to put 16 rands 85 to buy like one contract, which would equal to $1. You can just invest whatever amount of money that you'd like to keep in dollars. Now, with ETNs, the amount still stays in rands, but now the rands increase in value increase in value the same way as if you were holding the other currency that the ETN is tracking. So this is my favorite way because it doesn't come with any legalities. You're just buying an ETN, and the ETN goes up. And if you sell the ETN, you make a profit. Simple as that. So it's a really cool way. Obviously, with ETNs, make sure wherever you buy the ETN, it's being sold by a credible institution. Obviously, ABSA is pretty credible. I don't see the bank collapsing at all in the next, say, 100 years or hopefully 50 years. So you should be fine buying an ETN from them. The second way that you could utilize is to obviously use your bank accounts. So banks have global accounts. So if you just Google FNB global accounts, then you'll find the FNB global accounts. And if you're an FNB customer in good standing, you can open up this account. You can also look up Discovery, ABSA, Standard Bank. All of them have global accounts that enable you to save in foreign currency, which is what I do. I actually keep a lot of my money in foreign currency. I won't say which currencies, but I keep a lot of my money in foreign currencies. Another trick that is similar to this is you can in fact just convert your rands into, say, US dollars, Australian dollars, euros, and British pounds here on Easy Equities by using EasyFX. The only thing I don't like about EasyFX is that it does come with fees, which is okay. The fees are like 0.6% per transaction, which is fine. Meaning both if you invest in, you're gonna pay 0.6%, and if you invest out, you're gonna pay 0.6%, which is not that bad. So if I wanted to convert my rands into dollars, I'd obviously pick one of these accounts, so US dollar, Australian dollar, euros, or British pounds, based on the currency I want to choose. So let's say I choose US dollars, and then I'd pick the amount that I want to convert. So I could write that amount in rands or write that amount in dollars. Say I want to have $1,000, and then I could see, okay, these are the taxes and fees that I'd pay, which is not bad at all. In order to cover these fees, the currency just has to go up by 2% in value, and that's pretty something that is there's a high probability that will happen over the next 5-10 years, especially with something like US dollars. So those are the ways that you can buy foreign currency. So it's not difficult. However, there are legalities if you choose the bank account routes. In South Africa, our money is basically regulated and controlled by an institution called the South African Reserve Bank. They're the ones who are basically entitled to setting the rules for how money moves. And so there's something called foreign controls, and you need to understand those. They don't go like obviously that deep, but you just need to understand a few basics. So if you're doing this as an individual and you're converting money, your South African rands into dollars, whatever it is, using your bank account, your foreign global account, then probably you're going to be using a single discretionary allowance, which basically allows any adult South African to exchange up to 1 million rands into foreign money within a calendar year, right? Which is pretty cool. So that means every year you can take 1 million rands and turn it into a foreign currency without needing a tax clearance certificate from, say, the likes of the South African Revenue Service, aka SARS. But familiarize yourself with the rules for individuals. Understand what it can be used for and what it cannot be used for. It can be used for investing in things like shares. So if, let's say, you want to open up a brokerage account overseas and invest in companies that are overseas, then this would be what you are using. You'd be using your single discretionary allowance. If obviously you want to invest more than 1 million rands, then you have to actually apply for a tax clearance certificate, and then you can use up to 10 million rands within a calendar year. So that's one way. Or the other way, just open up a company and you'll get a bit of leeway in that sense. All right, so that's pretty much the legalities that are attached to doing something like this. but it's very, very important. As I'm sure you've seen the headlines, inflation is up. We're not sure if Africa is going to be flourishing or not flourishing. I believe that it will, but just to sort of protect yourself as an individual, it is a very, very good idea to keep some of your money in a foreign currency that is relatively stable and strong. That way, when your local currency is in trouble, you don't cry and say, what happened to my money? Anyway, guys, that's all I have for today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Till next time, thank you. Bye.